A very warm welcome to the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show. And today's show is Olympic Flame from Olympia. And today's guest is the founder of the Sports Trader charity in the UK and winner of the 2010 BBC Sports Personality of the Year Unsung Hero Award. He was a Royal Navy's reservist for 6 years and a National League basket player and coach. He is connected globally with influential individuals, celebrities, and sporting icons. Yes, folks, it gives me great pleasure to welcome on the show Lance Haggith OBE. Welcome to the show, Lance.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, doing the research on your life, it's quite inspiring. So this is, looking forward to this show. I really am.
It's been full and eventful, I can't deny.
It certainly has. It certainly has, reading what I've read. I mean, Lance, you started out in sport as a National League basketball player and, of course, coach. Please tell us more about how you got into basketball. Obviously, you have the height, which is a huge enabler. But where did it all begin? And, of course, who did you play for?
Yeah, well, that's easy to answer, and what you find is that you go to a school and the PE teachers have particular preference of sport. My boys went to a school that they particularly like rugby, or they didn't like rugby, so there was always a conflict, and they never did basketball. So in order for them to play basketball, I then went in and did evening classes and coaching for them. My school happened to be my PE teacher happened to be an ex-England basketball player.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can obviously imagine what happened. And we used to go in at 7 o'clock in the morning before school started. And the difference between success, I think, is putting in the effort. We were keen. We went in the morning, but because we did that, we had set plays, because other schools would probably not have PE teachers with the qualifications or the skill sets or the levels, but we did, and then of course we used to win everything because we had plays, we had reasons, and plus also, not being funny, then when you play about the schools, the referees were teachers and they hadn't got a clue.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but no, it's good fun and enjoyable. But it got you that discipline, and then we literally played, and then entered school with a lot of oxygen and a lot of in our heads and that, and the day, was good.
Fantastic. So who did you actually play for? Because you were, a national player. Who did you play for?
Yeah. Well, I played basically Watford Rebels, Hemel Royals, and I was training with a few of the older clubs, Ovaltine and that. But in the days when basketball really wasn't on the TV and the big sponsorships, it's more you're playing for fun rather than. So it was at the highest level, and Division 1, which there wasn't a BBL. Obviously, you've got BBL now, which is like the Premier League of basketball. But it was all about participation. And I obviously carried on playing after school. Then at college, then I went to Harrow. I went to first of all, I went to St Albans College of Art and Design to do a foundation to find out what I was interested in, and what I found I enjoyed and was good at was fashion.
Wow.
Which is people can't understand, but yes, I entered the competition and won it, so I felt that that's my calling. And I went to Harrow, which is one of the top 4 colleges, universities, polytechnics, whatever, in the country for fashion. There was Harrow, Ravensbourne, Kingston, and St Martin's, and London College was coming through as well in the background. But so it was me, and 75 girls, but
Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I enjoyed it. I was more interested in the business side of the things. Can't deny, I used to ask the girls to help me with the sewing, but I would help them with the pattern cutting or drawing, because I'd done drawing for years, and life class and that, so it came naturally to me. But sewing, it's a little bit sort of wasn't my thing. But we got through, and and I qualified, and and set up my first business actually in the last year, the final year of Harrow. If you're interested to know a bit more about that, I can tell you why it's what spurred me on to do that. And at the same time, I also set up a basketball club in the in Harrow to get to keep my hand in basketball.
Absolutely right. Fantastic. And there's nothing wrong with fashion, by the way. I do like to wear nice clothes too, so that's great. That's good to have your eye on clothing and
Yeah.
fashion, isn't it? Really good
Well,
idea.
yeah, I think the thing is that I wanted to stand out because what happens with any university or
Mm,
college, there's thousands of young people leaving at the same time, and there is only a finite amount of jobs. So I thought, right, how can I make myself different? How can I stand out? And also, companies want experience.
mm,
So I basically went to some companies and I just said, look, this is who I am. This is what I do. Would you consider, giving me some works experience for a couple of weeks and then see how it goes? It's not going to cost you anything. Maybe pay for my bus fare. But what I wanted was to get that, industrial experience, which you don't really get at college or school or whatever. It's so different, but I was up for that.
mm.
Anyway, I joined a company called Hoofer, who made high-end jeans and stuff. And basically, they uh, they 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 said, after 2 weeks, we find what you've done is amazing, and we really
Brilliant.
like to keep you on. And then they offered to pay me £50 as well, so a week. So I sort of thought, oh well, must be doing something right. And some of my stuff featured in magazines. It featured in things like weigh in at Harrods. People abroad were really interested to know a bit more about what I was doing there. But when I went back for my final year, even the teachers saying, pass on some experience and what you do, which I was more than happy to do. But it gave me I got that critical letter that said it's like a reference that I knew that would do me in good stead when I finished my end of year show, etc., which happened to be at the Cafe Royal, and
Excellent.
that was good because and again, you might find it strange, but it was around the year of Mad Max.
Okay.
It shows you how long ago it was, and when you've got the stage for you, which is the Cafe Royal, and the press there and buyers from all over the world. I thought, right, what's going to make me stand out? So I thought, right, I want to do leather, but they gave you a budget of £60, the course, and you can't really buy much for £60. But everybody else, not being unkind to the girls, was broderie anglaise, lace, chintz, all the very very, and they're
Yes.
all very pretty. I wanted to do studded leather, so I said,
Mad
is there
Max
any?
style.
Yeah, Mad Max style. And I said, is there any rules that for me to go out and get sponsored, and thinking outside the box? And they said, no, you can do that. So I then went to some companies, leather companies, tanneries, and I approached them. And the first one I went to was Gomshall's down in Guildford Way.
Mm,
And I said, look, you've got lots of lovely leather, but it's not very exciting. If you give me some leather, I'll make it up into garments, use it for my show, and then you can have some of the garments back to show. And they had a show in Paris, which later on transpired that it was a success, and I got sent out there on their behalf. Um, and and then that meant I could get £60 on just trims, studs, and fittings, which is
mm.
linings, which is more than enough. So yeah, so that was good. And so my collection was studded leather, and I wanted to have the music appropriate for it, which is like very hard hitting music, and a smoke machine. And I thought, well, I need a smoke machine. So in those days, it's a question of hiring this big kettle, basically, and going to the butcher's to get some dry ice, and then adding the two together. And you know, if you ever see the video clip of the show, which I have got, if anybody's interested, just to have a laugh.
Well,
But,
I'm sure it's very interesting. Yes, very
it is.
interesting indeed.
But it got the smoke, the girls coming through, the guys coming through, studded leather, but did the trick because I ended up getting a lot of interest. I was in the press. And then I got companies from America and that saying, you know, what you're doing, can you interested? So I thought, well, you know, I think maybe I'll do it myself, start my own business myself. So I poached one of the seamstresses at the college to come and work for me, and because she was good, Beryl, and then CBS, I don't know if they're still going, the music company CBS said we'd like to you know, you to help us on basically creating a look for up and coming bands, and some of which you would know, and some of which you wouldn't, because like the Roaring Boys didn't make it, but we did their look. But people like Paul Young, Alison Moyet,
Oh, wow.
Spandau Ballet, Wham. We did some old pieces for Ridgely and George Michael. So you know, the leather you see them wearing on the albums or in the videos would be probably mine.
That's interesting. I mean, did you ever meet these famous characters as well?
Yeah, they'd come. I was still at home. I was still with my mum and dad. They'd be sitting in the lounge having a cup of tea
With
because they'd be
George
coming for.
Michael and Andrew
Yeah,
Ridgeley.
yeah. Well, well, I can tell you many a story. Me and Andrew Ridgely at Zenons
Brilliant.
and Camden Palais, and yeah, on the nights out. But then, yeah. So technically, you know, you know, Alison Moyet in those days was a fuller figure. Let's put it like that.
Yes.
But fantastic talent, lovely voice, smashed it. And every now and again, she said, "Oh, I need another motorbike jacket, but make it look big because I want it to look like you know, like the girls at school, their boyfriends suddenly get their first moped, they wear their jacket, they roll the sleeves up, that sort of stuff. So that was the look she wanted, and that's what we did. Paul Young. In those days, there were the black 501s just came out, the Levi's,
Yes.
and he said, "Can I have one in leather, black leather?" Said, "Yeah, no problem." So we made one for him, and then he wanted another one. So we had to send them out when he was on tour to various places. So yeah, it was really really interesting. And Motley Music, who handled a lot of the those stars, just kept on saying, "Can you do this one? Can you do this one? Do this one?" So great time.
Sounds awesome, doesn't it? Fantastic experience. It really is. Yeah, over and above your sporting credential, of course, which is
Yeah,
fantastic. I
yeah.
mean, as a basketball coach, you do have, I believe, over 35 years experience of coaching
Mm,
youngers from poorer backgrounds. And in 2014, UK sport cut funding for basketball to zero because of the short-term chances of Team GB winning a European, World or Olympic medal. And
crazy.
it's slim. It's awful, isn't it? And a young
Oh,
player named Connor Washington, I love this story, by the way, Lance,
yes,
named
yeah,
Connor Washington stated, "Basketball saved my life, a prime example of why UK sport should see and fund basketball as a national sport. The
yeah,
Leicester Riders point guard is a prime example of how success in sport should not be judged on medals alone." I mean, Lance, you took Connor Washington under your wing and helped him
yeah,
achieve his dreams. Connor went
yeah,
on to win the BBL Cup, Championship, and playoff, and
yeah,
represented Team GB at under 20 level. I mean, this alone makes you a very special man, Lance, doesn't it?
yeah. Well, he's a special person, and over the years had a few, but Connor was someone that it was a friend of. Well, he was in basically in my club, and his mum passed away unexpectedly on Mother's
Sad.
Day. It's
Oh
very
dear.
sad.
Very sad.
So he was losing his way. He was getting with the wrong company, and yet he's very talented. I saw the potential in him, and
Mm.
also he became friends with my eldest, and they had a real synergy. And when on the court, they were unstoppable. It was absolutely amazing to watch them. And when I did later on basketball events like Hoops Aid, there's clips of the two of them, and they just know where the other person is, and blind passing and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, and Connor, he was doing really really well, and then he got a scholarship for America,
Mm.
and we managed to get that. And before then, he got selected for England or Great Britain, but he wasn't getting the support from home as much as for his potential. So I ended up taking him to Stansted Airport to get the flight to Denmark and various things. And then I said, "You're all right to get home?" "Yeah, no problem." And then I get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning. He's in Stansted. His dad hasn't picked him up because he's forgot or he's somewhere else.
Oh dear.
So I then going and get him and pick him up. So yeah, so through the years, I've been there, like helping him wherever I can, and he calls me dad as well, so which is
Wonderful.
lovely, yeah. But the American experience was an experience, although he got the wrong club or the wrong college because the coach son was in the same team, and he took preference, although he wasn't as good as Connor, so he was always got the position and the seat, and then basically it got to a point where he got forced out, and then ended up back in England, and then he was working at a coffee shop, and then I was saying, no, there's too much talent to get wasted. So I made a call to Russell Livingston at the Leicester Riders, he was the general manager out there, and of course I know them. I know I'm known through basketball, and I just said, look, and also they know my boys, etc. And I said, look, we need to not waste his talent. We need him in your team. And he said, yeah, I totally agree. And so I rang his dad and I said, look, I want him to be playing professionally, and I'm going to get him into Leicester Riders, which is like the Man City of basketball.
Wow.
So I rang Connor. I said, look, I've spoken to your dad. I woke him up. It was on a Sunday morning. I woke him up. I said, I've spoken to your dad. I've spoken to the head coach and that at Leicester Riders, and I spoke to Russell. Your train leaves in 2 hours to go to Leicester. So I got him dressed, got him in the thing, so he didn't have time to think. Got him there, and the rest is history. He was with them for years, and still it is, and and it's got him into the right sort of mindset. But the main thing is, he's done well, and he's got a lovely family now, and settled, but you've got to, when you see these opportunities, it's creating the opportunities, and that's why I set the charity up later on. There's a lot of talent, but if you haven't got the opportunity or the way-how or the equipment or the facilities, it just gets wasted.
No, it does indeed. And Connor Washington himself said, and I will quote this because it's quite a remarkable quote: "As a working class kid, I wasn't able to afford transport of any kind to make it to training or matches. So Lance took me to every single session I needed to be at." I mean, that's sensational, isn't it? Stewardship like that. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, that I suppose I get that sort of grounding from my dad. He was very much put everybody first, and I always remember Dad always pushed himself and that. And I remember as a 5-year-old going to school, and it was pouring rain, and Dad's just in a shirt. But I remember my friends saying, "Oh gosh, your dad's so strong, he doesn't need a coat." But he always made sure us 4 kids were always dressed, clean, fed, etc., etc. So, and I've picked that up for years, and now my boys are doing the same, following my footsteps, and they've come to many of my sessions, help me with coaching, helping with the disabled kids or with kids from disadvantaged backgrounds, and they've turned out, as I feel, and many people commented, well-rounded young adults.
Yeah, good parenting. There's no doubt about it. It does breed excellence, doesn't it? In most cases, it really does, and that's fantastic to hear. Really
Well,
is a good
sport
thing.
also is what is there not to love about sport? For mentally and also physically, and it helps. It's good grounding for life, I think.
It is.
And you usually find the core of players at school tend to be the same. They're in the cricket team, they're in the basketball team, they're in the football team. But they're more or less likely to get in trouble because they're focused on practicing and being in a team. So as I said, probably you've seen when I've done interviews on the BBC. That's their gang. It's a good gang. It's not a dodgy gang. So we put that sort of opportunity into tough rundown areas or disadvantaged areas to give kids that chance for free to be able to participate and later on excel in something that was only a dream before.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a fantastic thing to do. It really is. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And of course, sport is a great founder as well. Provides a great foundation for future business awareness and team. Being a member of a team at business, it creates a better person, doesn't it? All round, it really does. Knowing how to lose to enable you to win nicely as well. Fabulous sport. It really is.
Well, I used to get told off by my wife because many a time because apart from being in the garden till very late at night shooting hoops and then moving the ring to under a lamppost to actually whenever we played bowling or snooker or anything, I wouldn't hold back. I'd win. I'd aim to win, and then that pushed them. And then because they're three brothers, I got 3 boys and a daughter. The competition was there, and still is, believe me. And of course now they can kick my ass, So, but and I thought, well, that's time to hang my boots up when they can run past me, because I also got the 5-star AAA Athletic Gold Award. And I was jumping, triple jump. I'm 6'7" and I've got the legs. I've still got the same size legs as I did when I was a kid, so I can do triple jump and then long jump quite well. And it was quite funny when I met Jonathan Edwards and his son was there, and I was saying to the son, I said, "You don't realise how far your dad jumped. It's quite incredible." But funny enough, when I was 13, when I got the 3AA AAA thing, I was jumping further than Jonathan Edwards.
Wow, that's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was a champion, wasn't he, Jonathan Edwards?
Well, the thing is that but his technique, and when you're that age, you can have flaws as long as you can jump far. And my step wasn't as long as when you get older. His hop, his step, and his jump were almost equal. And that's phenomenal. I just don't know how he did it, because it's over 18 meters. Each jump is 6 meters. That's three times my height times 3.
Yes,
it's
huge.
Phenomenal. Absolutely, it's just if you measure it out, you just cannot believe it. But what I did find also, and my dad was saying, be careful because you're taking such an impact on your knees, you're going to damage your knees. Then I sort of steered away from athletics and went into basketball because I could slam dunk at school, and focused on that. And my boys, the same sort of thing. They were all very good at sport, very good. I even had teachers, which just shows you. My youngest, he was good at all the sports, and he was at the infants shooting in 10-foot hoops, so proper size hoops, and being consistently good. In his school, they had inflatable basketball ring, so it's like a toy, and he used to get told off for hitting the rounders ball too far because the girls had to run, and they were telling him off. That's not giving the right message. You've got to push and excel. So I actually got coaches in, like for his tennis and that, during when they had like a double PE, would come in and coach him. So he got proper coaching rather than getting told off for hitting a ball too far or trying to put a basket in a 3-foot basketball inflatable ring. So ridiculous. So you have to put the effort in. And as I said, they're all good at all levels, disciplines. But I said, look, if you want to, I think when they got to about 10, 11, 12, I was saying, you really now need to focus on one discipline. Because you're good at everything, but you want to be really good at something. I said, I can help you with basketball. Like Ellis, he was county champion at tennis. He also scored 40-odd goals in the Vauxhall League football. in the season. But he was National League playing basketball with the MK Lions. And so I said, basketball is I can help you with. I can't help you with tennis. I can't help you much. I did do football, and I did help coaching 5-year-olds and that. But I said, you want to be really excel at that one sport. So he accepted basketball, much to the annoyance of his mum, because she likes tennis, and she had visions of her going to Wimbledon to watch him. And he would have done well. I think he would have done well with the right sport, because he ended up 6'8", and in the modern game you need to be big.
Yes.
You need to be tall, big levers and arms. And so, he really did excel. And also when he was 14, he was being trained. He got into the England regional, and he was being coached by the top England coach for the seniors. And they had all these shot programs, and 3-point line. They do one that's 50 shots, and it's 5 stanchions, 10 shots per stanchion, and and I think it's 11-minute frame to see how many you can get in. To be an English or Great Britain senior player, you have to get 50%. And he, on that one test, he got out of 50, he got 37.
Wow.
So he basically smashed it. He's well over 50%, and the coach or the England guy said, "Oh, we can't close that, because it's embarrassing, an under 14 doing that well and against the men." He said, "No, sod it. Let's show the adults how good this little guy is."
Absolutely right. Yes.
So he did really well. He was known as the hitman because he could hit threes. They could all do, because we used to go in the gym, because when I was at the coaching at the school, the same school actually that Paula Radcliffe went to.
Oh, wow.
Both the Lincroft and then Sharnbrook in Bedfordshire, and she went to both. And of course, she was exceptional. I used to go to the. She became a friend because of the connections within the sports, and her statistics and times have still not been beaten. So she was exceptional in those days as well. So, but the thing is, we used to go, because I had the facility of the free use of the gym in both the schools. So in the lower school, and also or the middle school in Bedfordshire, and the upper school, we used to go in regularly, me and the 3 boys, and we do 1,000-shot programs. So basically just pick a shot and do 1,000 of them, and then so the muscle memory and all that sort of stuff. So and I've seen the boys chuck up balls from all over the court, and I remember when Ellis played against Wales, and there was about less than a second to go, and it was the halfway court. So I'm going to him, I said, "It's a catch and chuck. So he's facing this way. I said, as soon as you receive it, you've got to chuck it." And he got it, chucked it. So the buzzer goes when it's in the air, and it went straight in nothing but net.
Wow.
And that's a blind shot. That's a blind. It's turning and chuck.
So, I love that term, chuck. You've got to chuck it. Wonderful.
Probably not the right term.
But still, it's what it is, isn't it? A fantastic shot, obviously. I mean, you're also the founder of the Sports Trader charity here in the UK. I mean, this does sound like a fabulous charity, and one that I'm sure you'd like to talk about here as well, Lance, bringing the Sports Trader charity and awareness to the ears of the show's audience. Why not?
For sure. It's something I set up 15 years ago. All my kids, all my boys ended up playing for, let's say, BBL teams. And so they have their own coaching system, and so I'm made redundant to some extent, although I used to do some coaching privately. So they actually were off my hands, for want of a better word, and playing professionally. So what I thought, well, they've had the opportunity, they've had the benefit of support from a parent or guardian. I want to give the same to young people that don't quite get that opportunity. So we set up a club at the local youth club to start with young carers. I did it with my wife, and she was doing beauty, cooking, and that for these young carers. And these are kids that sometimes are so tied in with looking after maybe a mother that's blind. They're doing washing, cooking. Probably some of them are only 8 or 9 years old, and then they're falling behind on school. They're tired, haven't done their homework, so they're being missed out. I know through the years it's got better and they're being recognised and there's a lot more support nowadays. But in those days there was nothing. So these kids could come to us for a couple of hours, a couple of nights a week, and just be kids. And it was chaos. It was as noisy as you can imagine. The kids running around screaming, and so I did the sport. So I would do cricket, quick cricket, basketball, football, whatever. But what I noticed was these children coming who were probably the family on benefits,
Yes.
they didn't have training shoes, they just had school shoes. So I'm thinking there must be a way we can collect in unwanted children's wear and sportswear and redistribute it. So extending the life of a product, number one, but giving a child a chance, because there's nothing wrong with them. And I don't, if you've got children yourself, you know how quickly they grow out of things. It can be
Exactly.
3 months. So that was the sort of the idea, and then it got typified by a young boy coming to the club in November. It was pouring rain, cold, and he arrived wet with a t-shirt on. So I asked the question. I said, "Where's your coat?" And he said, "We can't afford one, coach."
Oh dear.
So I suddenly thought, right, this needs to be addressed. This really needs to be addressed. And there's a lost property box in the corner full of stuff. And I spoke to the club, and they said, "Oh, it's been there for years. And, at the end of the time, we just chuck it. We just throw it away." So there was a coat in there, a Nike coat, and I said, "Can I have that one to give to this young lad?" And they said, "Yeah, of course. It's been there. No one's claimed it." So giving him that coat was that eureka moment, because his face said it all. And I've got pictures of kids who have nothing receiving old stock, even brand new old stock. We've got an amazing picture not that long ago of a lad we gave a brand new pair of Nike football boots to, who had nothing. His mum was upset because she got no birthday present for him. There's been abuse in the family and that. And this face, the smile on his face when he's opened the box, that I often send that to people because they've allowed me to do that. They've given me permission to do that, just to show, well, you're having a bad day, have a look at this, and that's what it's about. So that idea was just to get in all this unwanted stuff, give these opportunities. And we had one great example was we had 2 brothers going to football every other week because they were sharing one pair of boots, and one of the brothers have to put newspaper in to make it fit. So we just give them a free pair, and they both can go at the same time.
Wonderful. What a great story. And of course, you've opened up quite a few of these shops now around the UK, haven't you? Sports trader charity shops.
Yeah, we're national.
Yes.
We're going through a bit of a. It's funny enough. Today is like we're now. We've done well at sport. Don't get me wrong. It's been our main focus. And what we found, and a few years ago, particularly during COVID, that we're doing good. We've got such successes. We've saved a lot of lives and saved a lot of kids. Some have now got one world champion. We've got one in the Premier League. We've got kids that are representing GB. We actually had a cycle team, a junior cycle team under 15, national. We got up against big, work clubs and WD-40, Sky. They had all the big fancy workshop trucks and the sponsorships and all that. We were the first charity racing club. So we were Sports Trader Racing to represent young people in this national event. and so we had to beg, steal, borrow. We had Shimano gears, we had Continental tires, we had frames, from Trek, or all the stuff came together, all the pieces. We had someone that sponsored us for the clothing. We had a gazebo, and we had mums and dads with people carriers, and that's what we did. What we did have is we had kids with hearts, opportunities that they would not have, and we won. We were national champions. We beat all these other clubs.
Fantastic.
What happened was they nicked all our riders.
Well, they would do. That was the obvious thing that's going to happen,
Yeah,
I guess. But
yeah, which is fine. And I now get, these young boys are now, early 20s representing Great Britain, and they say, "Oh, I've just did this in the Olympics, and then
yes,
in Italy we've done the tour or whatever." And it's great to hear, and they still keep in touch and can't thank me enough for that opportunity. So and then on the other scale, we've helped thousands of kids to swim. So I see that as a life skill, and it should be. In my days, it was mandatory learning to swim. I remember getting my 25 yards to swimming certificate. Just shows you how old I am. And nowadays, it's not compulsory. I think that should be on the curriculum. I think first aid should be on the curriculum, plus a few other things. So we then taught kids, because you wouldn't believe it, but the fifth biggest accidental death in young children, is drowning.
yes, it is.
Yeah,
And to have that 25-yard mandatory swimming certificate, I do remember it too. So it shows my age a bit too, Lance, to be honest.
Mhm.
And everybody at the school used to have to do it, and some
Yeah.
children obviously really struggled because they just couldn't do it, but they were
Yeah.
forced, pushed along.
Yeah,
To get that
100%.
and that was fantastic,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, and I think because I work, one of my best brand companies that support us is Pentland.
Okay.
I've worked with Pentland for years in different ways, with Stephen Rubin previously, but with Andy Rubin in the last 15 years. He supported the charity right from day one, giving us old stock and that. But obviously they own some big brands. They
Yes.
own the Mitre, Berghaus, Kickers, Speedo, obviously, and there's about 20 brands, I think, but Speedo, number one brand in the world, and we looked at doing projects to really get kids confident in water. Now that could be we're not talking about making them Olympic swimmers. We're just talking about, if you fall in the water, survival, getting back to the shore, raising awareness, because again, swimming, it's a lot of the poor areas, in foreign countries happen to be right by water's edge. So it could be pollution, it could be crocodiles. There's so many things to take into consideration. So it was such a bigger thing and a bigger problem. But we did get involved, and we get donated swimwear and that, which we help kids, and we talk to swim bars and that to give opportunities for the kids to come and swim, because it's quite expensive otherwise. It's if you a family of four or whatever, it's quite a lot of money to take them swimming. But the great thing is that they are we've probably saved lives in that sense.
Definitely.
Definitely. So but we've been lucky with many brands. But going back to COVID, what we were finding when kids were coming to our sessions, quite often they would be in a PE vest, and you could see that they got cut marks on their arms. So we then start thinking about why and what's the reason behind that. So a few years ago, I started to dig deeper, and it could be an effect from being bullied, abuse, mental health, as well as maybe eating or medical issues. And then that really opened a can of worms for us, because we then started helping young people with mental health issues through giving them sporting opportunities. One of them being skipping. So we did the Jump for Health. I came up with the Jump for Health program, because we know that if you skip, it releases endorphins, So we were saying to children, right, if you're feeling anxious and you're normally going to grab a pair of scissors or a knife, grab a skipping rope, skip for a couple of minutes, and
Good
then tell us
advice.
how you feel, and then we reward them. So kids love presents. So we give them what they call a bag of love, so that they're allowed to take a present out if they feel that anxious, as long as they tell us and how they feel, and it deflects them off the way of getting that adrenaline rush or whatever it is that in more by cutting themselves, they're getting it in a better way. So we give them a skipping ropes free, and that's been very successful. And that's one of the projects that I'm expanding. And Guinness Book of Records are wanting us to do a big world record. So that's to watch this space.
Yeah,
and
keep that going.
yeah,
Fantastic.
so that's basically sport. We've done really well. We've excelled. We're really good at. What we found is that there's some children that don't like sport. So we've now, and there's a big change, and you'll see sports trader being all like parked. We're now literally launching to include the arts, music. Book writing, sculpture, painting, photography. Already done a few exhibitions. We've already helped a young artist that was talking to suicide. Now has had his first exhibition at the Hippodrome.
Wonderful.
We've got artists who all want to help. So I've got Guy Patelli, who was one of the winners of the winner. He was on Dragon's Den, and all 5 dragons invested in him. So. And then we've got companies like with the sportswear who have excess paint and stuff, maybe damaged boxes. We don't care about boxes. We just want tubes of paint. We just want paper. We want canvases. So we're getting that given to us. So so it's now going into a different direction. I'm going to be taking a slightly backward role, as you know, because of personal issues with there's things happening in my life.
Indeed.
But I think the legacy, what I've done and what's happening is to be continued.
It's in a good position. It's solid, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
end there either, does it? Because of course, in 2001, you were awarded the Royal Humane Society by the Royal Humane Society, actually, an award for bravery. I mean, this sounds an incredible award. And of course, what act of bravery, Lance, did you do to get this award? It sounds incredible.
Yeah, it was. Basically, I pulled a girl from a burning car.
Wow.
The car went past me. I was going down the M25 near the M11. Lost control, rolled down the bank, and then burst into flames. And there was a young girl, the 19-year-old girl in there, who's later become family friends.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, and her head was against the window. There's blood, and she was unconscious. And I thought, well, I've just got to go and get her. And then my kids, but I only had 3 boys in the car at the time. We were going to a fireworks display, and they were 10, 8, and 6. They're quite young, and it was 8, 6, and 4, maybe 8, 6, and 4, I think. So my eldest, I told him in the people carrier to lock the doors while I went round to the car. And I remember as I'm going towards the car, running on bits of car and gravel and that as I get to the car, went to open the door, wouldn't open. And I thought, oh, this because it rolled, it sort of got crushed. But what happened was that I put my hands in the top of the door frame because I couldn't punch the window because her head was right against the window, and I pulled it, and the window just broke. It sort of folded diagonally from corner to corner. It seemed to once the glass goes, it folded really easy.
Yeah.
But now the car's filling up with smoke, and the flames are coming out the bonnet and that. And I leaned in to unclip a belt, but her leg was caught underneath the pedal. So I had to actually sort of climb into in between her and the seat, the steering wheel, to release her foot. And that was the bit I was feeling a bit more vulnerable than normal, because my feet came off the ground as I'm going into the thing. But to cut a long story short, released it, pulled her through the window, carried her to the verge, and then minutes later, fire brigade came and police came, and then she got taken to hospital. And then yeah, they just, you know, thanked me, and then I heard nothing. And then I get a call from the mum to thank me, and she said she'd like to me to come and meet the family because we would all like to thank you. So we went for a dinner at a local restaurant, and then when I arrived there, the whole place was full of her family, of friends, and it's a bit embarrassing. But you know, she had broken I think collarbone and got a fracture on her head and that, but you know, healed properly, and. So the story ended well, and every 3rd of November every year I get a message from her thanking me. And then when she got married, I was invited to a wedding.
Oh, wonderful.
Her 2 kids came up to me once and said thank you for saving mummy's life. You know, it's nice, and you know. But my wife killed me. She actually said, "What the hell are you doing? You could have been killed. You know, your kids could have seen you get blown up." But that's the way I roll. Really, it's just I can't sit around. I have to act. And ironically, and this is quite funny, is that 3 weeks later we're driving down. My wife's next to me. We're driving down the M25 again, and a van loses control, rolls down a bank. It's on its roof.
Oh, no.
It wasn't on fire. It got crashed to the fence. Wasn't on fire. And I just looked at her, and she goes, "Oh, go on then, go on then." So I said, "There you go."
Yeah, she knew you
So I
was
ran,
going to anyway.
yeah. So I ran down the bank, and this guy was wriggling his way out the window because he's upside down. But I said, "There you go. You know, so you do what you do." But
Exactly.
yeah, so that's what it was for. Oh, and yeah, what happened was
Nice story.
I got contacted, and then I had to go to some lord something or other in a big mansion, and what's nice, they when I got presented with it, they asked for my son to be on the stage as well, because they said he acted brave, looking after his brothers, you know, and they said,
Oh, it's good.
yeah. They said, "Does your dad wear his pants on his outside his trousers?" You know, so. But
Very
also,
funny.
what was funny is that it was that weekend, and then when I went to pick up my 4-year-old Ellis, his teacher came out and said, "Okay, Mr. Haggith, can I talk to you? I just want to clarify." I said, "What's that?" You know, they write down what they did at the weekend, and he said, "Is it true that your son said you ripped the door off a car?" so, so I said,
Yes, it's true.
"Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, I didn't rip it off, but I bent it." But yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Oh, what a story, remarkable story. And of
yeah.
course, it's good that the young lady is alive and kicking, living the life now. It's
Mm.
fantastic. Good for you,
In
Lance.
her
And look,
30s, yeah, in her
yeah.
30s.
And of course, the awards kept coming, Lance, as well. And in 2010, you won
Mm.
the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Unsung Hero. I mean, this must have some story behind it, Lance, as well. So please tell us more. Or was it based on what we just talked about?
No, well, um, yeah. Well, what happened was that you get nominated, but someone nominates you, and then it
Yeah.
gets for the region. So I was representing the east of England. There's 16 regions, BBC regions around the country and Ireland, and yeah. So I remember it was all a big surprise because they come in and it's on YouTube and that they come in and surprise you and say, "Oh, by the way, congratulations, you are the BBC East, Look East sports personality, so unsung hero." And congratulations, you're now going through to the final, which that year was the NEC, and I thought, okay, that's great, thank you very much.
Nice
But
surprise. Almost a bit like
yeah,
Eamon Andrews. This is your life.
yeah,
Going
yeah.
back in
Well,
the day.
I wasn't expecting anything, and I certainly wasn't doing it for that. But I thought, well, okay, I've not been to the show, and it'd be quite
Mm.
nice. And the NEC was huge. It was like 15,000 people in there. Yeah, what happened was you get invited, and it was on a weekend where the snow was really deep. So most people stayed in, and it was difficult to get there. But we got there, and we got greeted by Peter Shilton in a hotel.
Mm.
All the contenders, and there was one couple missing, and it's the couple from Ireland who did boxing, who had a boxing club. But they kept going on about these Irish husband and wife, and that this year they're allowing a couple as well for the sports personality. So they kept on mentioning it, and then Peter would say, "Right, everybody, you got to think of a speech because it could be you, one of the 16." And my wife's going, you better think of it. I said, it's not going to be me. I said, no way. It's not going to be me. Not in a million years. So I'm not going to think of a speech. Don't worry. They keep talking about this Irish couple. And where are they? They said, I said, no one rang me to see who I was coming up through the snow and getting to the BBC, to the NEC. And anyway, all night they kept going on about this Irish couple. Oh, have they arrived? What's happening? And so I'm just thinking, oh yeah. And then we get taken in one of these Premier League football coaches, and yeah, very very smart, from the hotel to the arena. So we arrived there, and they said, right, we can now disclose who the top three are. So we but up to then, none of us knew. There was no one giving any indication. And the three are donk donk donk, the Irish couple, this netball lady, and myself.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, that's great. I finished third. Fantastic. I'm really happy about that. Because I thought,
speech.
yeah. Because I thought, well, there's no way. Because to be honest, I was 50, right? And I thought I was too young. Because I thought the unsung hero, you had to be 120, and be, mowing the grass on a football pitch or for 100 years. I just thought it can't. Yeah, although I've been coaching for 40 years, 30 years in that time, at that period, since I was 19. I hadn't ever imagined. So now, and my wife was going, you have to sort of just in case, think of a speech. So no, it's not me. It's definitely not me. So anyway, we sit down and in the main area, amongst the good and great, Beckham and all these stars, and I'm on the end of a row, and and the others are all sitting in there. So the finalists, we covered two rows. So I'm on the end, and then Mark said, "Well, you're at the end. They're not going to be putting you in the middle, which we have to climb over people. It could be you." I said, "No, it's not going to be. The Irish couple are sitting right behind me on the end of the row."
So you were convinced it was the Irish couple?
100%, 100%. So they were sitting there. So I thought, yeah, they're going to get it, but I'm well happy with third or second. So they didn't tell who was second or third. Anyway, out comes Linford Christie and Amir Khan to announce the winner. But before they announced the winner, suddenly this big bright light hit my face right by my side, and I'm going, "Oh my God, it's me!" Right? And she's going, "I told you, I told you." So I'm thinking, "Oh my God!" So I quickly check my tie and and then I thought, right, I'm gonna not rush, because I had to walk up there because I've got to think about what to say. So I didn't want to trip up going up the steps. Got to the stage, and then they said, "Right, we need you to say a few words." And I went, "Oh, okay." So I start talking, and they raised my mic up, saying, need to. So I said, "Oh, sorry, I'm not used to this." And but I managed to wing it, for want of a better word, and it wasn't the best speech.
Shuffle.
Yeah, it wasn't the best speech, but it is what it is. I sort of wanted to make reference about carers and disability and all that, because that's basically where the idea was born from. But also, with my dad, who had a stroke, my mum put a lot of time into making sure he was okay and caring for him and nursing him, saving the NHS and that a lot of money. But they're all unsung heroes. That's why I sort of said it's for an award for everybody that is not recognised. So yeah, so
really.
I got away with that. Yeah.
Wonderful, what a great story. And you also received a fabulous award from David Cameron, of course, in 2011, the then Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, of course. I mean, this time, the David Cameron inspired Big Society Award winner. You'll certainly need a much larger awards and trophy cabinet at home, Lance, wouldn't you? So what did you do to become the Big Society Award winner in 2011? And what would you like to meet David Cameron, of course, as well?
Yeah, it was good. I must admit, he was really nice. Came across really well, and it was to do with his awards was making a difference in communities,
Yes,
and that's technically what I was doing, is making a difference in communities.
you certainly were.
So yeah, so we got, what was nice is got to get to number 10 Downing Street, got the like royal treatment, and have a sneaky look at the cabinet office, all that sort of stuff. And it was around Christmas time, which so there was a big, well, it was all festively, the big tree outside with the decorations and that. So yeah, it was an experience, and one I won't forget. As I say, we were really well treated and greeted, and he knew all about what I'd done, which was nice, because. He must see loads of people, but he actually homed in on what we did. Yeah.
I mean, the last time I went to number 10 Downing Street happened to be at Christmas as well, so I always remember the big Christmas tree outside. And of course, as
Yeah.
I entered, I saw straight away in the corner of my eye to the right-hand side, the watchman's chair. Straight away, I'm straight at it to sit in it, and the doorman was going absolutely
I
crazy.
bet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did
well,
you
I
have
did
to put
it.
your? Did you have to? What was funny? Do you know you had to put your phones in the
Yes, I had to do
support
that.
the pigeonholes? But I had an iPad.
Oh, well,
They
that wouldn't
didn't.
fit, would it?
No, but they didn't take it off me, so I could
Oh,
take
bizarre.
pictures on my iPad.
Oh,
So,
that's brilliant.
yeah, yeah, brilliant.
I did wind the doorman up a bit more. Before I put my camera or my phone into the little pigeonhole, I did say
Mm,
to one of my colleagues, "Hey, look, take my camera. Can you take a picture of me in the watchman's chair?" This
mm,
guy went absolutely ballistic. It's brilliant. Huge,
yeah.
huge, huge fun. It really was. But
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's as good. Yeah, and I think that sort of thing is nice that those sort of recognition are made, because
definitely.
there's so many people doing some fantastic stuff, and I meet more and more, and real unsung heroes,
Mm.
that've got nothing but making that difference. It's just incredible.
Definitely. I mean, also in 2012, you were an Olympic torchbearer at the London Olympics. What a great Olympics that
Mm.
was, actually. I do remember it
Oh,
very well.
amazing.
And
Oh,
just to
phenomenal.
give, oh, it was, and just to give the audience some context here, the Olympic torch relay is the ceremonial relaying of the Olympic flame from Olympia in Greece to the
Yeah.
site of the Olympic Games. It was invented basically by the Nazis, crikey, and was first performed at the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin as a way for Hitler to spread Nazi influence over other countries. Incredible, isn't it? And to
I didn't know
highlight
that.
the Aryan connections of Germany to Greece. And that's what it's all about. It's fascinating. I did my research on all of that. Really quite a good
No.
story. It has
Mm.
taken place prior to every Olympic Games since. So a real honour to be an Olympic torchbearer, Lance, isn't it?
Do you know what? It's one of those things that is surreal. It really was, and I was pleased to be nominated, and
Mm,
we're talking that quite a few people around the country. Was it? But for some reason, people think there was only one torch. A lot of people thought there's just one torch getting handed around. Obviously, we all ended up with the torch if we wanted to buy it. I think it was
mm,
about 60 quid,
yes.
and a nice thing. And you had like a sort of a section of where you run. The
Well,
ironic
what
thing
what leg
is,
did you run then? What leg in the country did you do?
right? Well, I did the suits were like big white, and I'm 6 or 7. I look like an ice cream salesman or whatever. It looked. I stood out,
Brilliant.
but
Yes.
and I thought, and I'm born and bred Watford, so of course my team's Watford,
Mm.
and the leg they gave me was Luton.
Oh,
Yeah,
your worst
yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah,
Yes,
so I was
for
just
Watford.
hoping no one knew I was a Watford supporter running down amongst all these Lutonians, and in a massive target white white suit.
Yes.
So I actually had the leg between Stockingstone, I think it's Stockingstone, Stockwood Park,
Yes.
running down the hill. So technically, I wasn't the first leg; I was the second leg. This poor young lad who was about 11, he had the first leg, and there was no one from the roundabout to the Stockwood Park start. There's no one standing along the edge there. They're all round where I'm standing.
Oh, wow.
Hundreds and hundreds of people. Absolutely ridiculous. So
The lonely runner on his own.
yeah, he was. So and then of course he then had to go on the coach. The mum couldn't go, so I sort of like chaperoned him a bit. So just
Mm.
say, don't worry, I'll keep an eye on him. And but sort of semi entertaining the crowd, because by now you get kicked off your coach, and he drops the coach. This coach drops off people along the way. So what happens is another big coach, big double decker with press and photographers and all that, is following the runner. So he's coming towards me, and I'm there, and then his torch lights my torch, and then I
Yes.
go, and he gets onto the double decker. So it's like double deck at the front, double deck at the back. So I'm legging down, running down the hill. Everybody's waving, cheering, clapping. It's a phenomenal sight. And this, bear
Oh, I
in
can
mind, this
imagine.
is the day it was the Wimbledon final and the British Grand Prix. So people, even though those two big events were on, they were out in numbers. And as soon as you do your bit, they extinguish your thing, take out the gas canister, and then it's yours. But of course, then everybody mobs you because they all
Yes.
want to hold it or they want to touch. I had babies being chucked from about 10 feet away to me to try and say, like, when they grow up, say, well, you touched the torch. It was that crazy and that manic. But yeah, it's definitely a time to remember. And then I got invited as a VIP guest with Nick Clay, was it Nick Clay? He was the Deputy Prime Minister, or he was they had a collab, didn't they?
Yeah, it
Nick
was, wasn't
Clegg.
it?
Nick Clegg.
Yes.
That's it, Nick Clegg. So that was quite fun because then we met at Guildhall, and we all got to the Olympics, and we all got lunch boxes, which were like very flash. They were a
Yes.
lunch box and a half, I tell you. And got on this coach, and then we had a police escort. We were going through traffic lights. Felt a bit like a pop star. It was just like had helicopters above, straight to the back entrance of the thing, and I think Cameron was in a car in the front, but yeah, we were in his guest as a part of that, so that was good.
Wonderful. Oh, that's perfect, isn't it? And of course, it just carries on, your life with the walls. Because in 2017, the University of Bedfordshire bestowed upon you an honorary Doctor of Science. It's Dr.
Yeah,
Lance now, of course, for outstanding service to sport, which I
yeah,
understand was primarily presented to you for your work as founder of Sports Trade, of course, the charity we've already talked about, to offering youngsters kit and support they need to
yeah,
fulfill their sporting potential. But another fantastic moment in your life, Lance, isn't it?
yeah.
Dr. Lance.
Yeah. That's good and bad, I suppose, because they do, when I go to do things, they do put doctor in front, and it
Mm.
does it to the bemusement of people. I'm not a doctor, so but yeah, and it was they took they it was I was really appreciate the award. Got
Of
dinner and
course.
that, but they take it really seriously. And again, I ended up in Luton. I don't know why I keep getting up in Luton. It's like a big mansion house, beautiful,
Yes.
stately home. But you get dressed. You have two people dressing you.
Wow.
And
Royalty.
yeah, literally they were like making sure that it was a certain height and this and this and then this wrap and this robe and this hat, and it was like, yeah, it's just it was like precise, and then I had to do a speech, and then receive the award. Yeah,
That's incredible. I mean, you've also been the founder of many other profit and non-profit organisations. I mean, this list is impressive, such as Lance of London, BCP, Sports Trader Charity, of which we've already talked about, Hoops Aid, Sports Poundland, Bounce Back, Golf Aid Designer, and Golf Aid, and designer of the Cowpole Sachet and Pack Buster, which sounds incredible. Plus
yeah,
Boxing Aid and Puck Aid. I mean, many interesting organisations, Lance.
yeah.
But please enlighten us. I mean, how did the inspiration to design the Cowpole Sachet and Pack Buster come about?
Yeah, well,
'Cause that's incredible, isn't it?
funny enough, uh, I love designing, I love
Mm,
inventing, and I've had some good ideas. And my dad was the same. He was known for doing the joke on a stick, by the Nestle ice cream stick. So you have the joke, and then the answers underneath the ice cream. And then before he died, he got a VIP tour of the factories and stuff. I remember taking him around in his wheelchair. But I've always, I suppose, been interested in what he did, and I did the same thing, and I come up with some ideas,
mm,
and some big successful. The cowpot sachet was very successful, but they ripped me off, and that's the negative, because
Yes.
you know, and I have a frustration with big companies that, you know, why rip someone off? You know, it's a good idea. Surely you want to reward them because
Yes.
you're going to make, because they made loads of money. They made, it was one of their what they call the hot spots.
Really.
It exactly what, you know, why I invented it, or why I came up with it, is because
Mm.
the cow pole previously was in a glass bottle with a child-friendly lid,
Mm.
but because it's sticky solution, my eldest, who was a baby at the time, managed to open it and drink half the content of the
Oh
thing.
dear.
So I thought that's dangerous. The doctor said he'll just be sleepy, don't worry about it. But I thought, you know, it's impractical because we've had one that broke in a suitcase, so you get all the sticky stuff all over the place. So
Yeah.
I thought there must be a way we just do a single dose portion in a sachet that you can put in your wallet, you can put in your handbag, in your car, but also because it's of a lower amount of content, it can be sold over the counter, not behind the counter.
Mm.
So it can be in petrol stations, airports, and stuff like that. Exactly what happened. So I come up with the designs, I give them the samples, I did all the work. They then wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement of the content of Calpol, so to see whether there was any contamination or migration into the sachets.
Mm.
It never arrived. It said it'd take me 3 or 4 weeks, never arrived. And they kept on blocking me and avoiding me. And 6 months later, my wife calls in tears saying, you know, it's all over the boots. There's tons of it.
Oh,
Um,
that's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah. So I went to sue them, but they were just, you know, they could chuck. They said, well, we can chuck millions at it, can you? And because
Yeah.
what happened, Warner Lambert got bought by Pfizer, and then Pfizer got bought by Johnson
Terrible.
Johnson. Yeah, Johnson Johnson. And you know, many times you hear Pfizer and all that getting done for
Mm.
bad practice or whatever, but they just don't care. They've got so much money. These
Exactly.
pharmaceutical companies,
Bullies.
they're quash there, they quash you. But me, I would rather say, well, here you go. This is what we agreed. This is the percentage.
Mm.
What else have you got? You know, I've got loads of ideas, so I could come up with another good winning thing.
Oh,
But no, they're arrogant. But you know, my day will come because
yes, it will.
you know, my profile on that's getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
You
Well,
know,
it's certainly a good
I can't.
invention, that's for sure. You know, I'm sure you've got
Yeah,
many other ideas.
yeah. Well, look, I have, and you know, amount of people, you know, I get people shaking my hand saying what a, you know, what a great product that is, and it's a real lifesaver and that, because it is a good product.
Yes.
You know, it's a sort of like a kid can be really ill 1 minute, give them a sachet, and then they're
Yeah.
alive and kicking. And basically, I wanted a sachet because at night time, you know, you put a dose on the spoon, give them the child, then you put the spoon down, a sticky
Mm.
spoon on the bedside cabinet. Whereas this, you squirt in the child's mouth and throw away.
Yeah.
They didn't want to encourage that, even though I put a directional flow system on the mouthpiece, because they said, well, we need to include a spoon just in case you need to give them a half measure. So fine, 10 sachets, spoon,
Mm.
job done. Thank you very much. And annoyingly, you know, because I still had young children, I had to buy the product.
Oh,
You know, although Pfizer said, well, we can give you a whole load free as
oh,
compensation, and I
that's
said, well,
nice
I'm
of
not.
them. Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
you know, they said, well, you have got 4 children, so you'll get through a lot. I was like, well, that's not going to pay the bills.
No.
So, you know, it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, but I say my day will come. But
Well, I
um,
guess really next time you get something like that, which is innovative, get them to sign a non-disclosure on your product.
well, it's easy said than done. That's the
Mm.
problem. You know, what happens is they say, well, you know, like even Warner Lambert, you know, their barrister and
Mm.
their lawyer, which was Olswangs, which is the one that in London and Strand
Mm.
that Dyson used. You know, it's quite a massive firm, and they're saying to me, say, look, you know, it's the fact is you come up with a great idea, it's spending millions, and you got to meet the managing director of Warner Lambert.
Oh, wow.
That's really good. That's really good luck. I said, hold on.
Hold
I
on.
came up with a
Yeah.
really good idea, selling millions, got to meet the managing director, and he ripped me off and
Yeah.
stuffed me. That's
Yeah.
good luck. Well, what's bad luck? You know,
Quite
so
right too. That's
in their
awful,
face. Yeah,
awful way
you
of
know,
doing
it's
business.
really, you know, it just makes, because then you have to worry about when you go to somewhere else with an idea. that you're always a bit skeptical that they'll do the same. And
Of course you are.
I've got a really good idea for Formula One, and I was just thinking, well, that's probably the hardest one to get into, but
Mm.
it's a good idea. Yeah, I'll know it work.
Or maybe the big cheeses at those companies could be part of this next piece that I've dug up about you on my search, which is quite good. You're also part of Dr. Louise van der Velde's Fabulous Five, a program that offers a unique 12-month support program specifically designed for time-poor, stressed-out CEOs, hence the link, and billionaires who want more fun and adventure in their lives, but also need fast and efficient solutions to optimize their companies, relationships, self-mastery, and health. So how did this all come about, Lance? That's quite
Again,
specific, isn't it?
I suppose the doors open. The more I've been,
Yes.
been involved in and business, and then getting the accolades and getting the sports personality. I can't deny that has been, as embarrassing as it was, has been an advantage. I certainly wouldn't have the phone number of Auntie Joshua and
Mm.
royalty and that if I hadn't have done that. And then of course when you do an event, they come and people come because of them, not because of me.
Yes.
The year I won was one of the winners of Beef Sports. It was David Beckham, Rafa Nadal, Colin Montgomery, AP McCoy, and myself.
Mm.
And so some of them are stayed friends, and some of them are support wherever they can. And that's what's great. But with Louise and that, she's someone that's also liked what I did and supported me through various things and been part of the journey. And again, I can return the favour, and what I'm preaching and what I can bring and help to other businesses, etc., about getting that balance of life. I've got to
Yes.
start. That's why I'm telling you that I'm now starting to do that, address that myself, because I have to really take care of my mental health. My sister's
Of course
got
you do.
motor neurons disease, and I'm going through a divorce and various things, etc. So it's
Mm.
quite a challenging time. So yes, I'm taking a piece out of my own book.
And I don't blame you there, Lance, at all. Put yourself first for a change. You've put everybody else in
Mm.
front of you pretty much all your
Yeah,
life. Happen, disadvantaged children, etc., as we've talked about
yeah,
on this show. So apart from all of this stuff, and I have had to cut some out actually because this has been a great show. We are already about an hour and a quarter in. So what is next on the
Right.
list of Lance moving forward? I mean, okay, time out is what you're saying, but do you have any other
yeah.
charitable or business pursuits in mind for later on?
Yeah, well, as I say, it's including the widest spectrum of young
Mm,
people,
of course.
because it has been so successful and so important. We've had when you the problem that I was having, is that we were promised funding from various places and we weren't getting it. And we needed to have more nurses. We needed to have full
Of
front
course we
end,
do.
and we're talking very big companies. And we have got some amazing companies that have support us and still support us. But when you've got a mum saying my daughter's cutting herself and talking to suicide,
Mm,
you can't put it off. You've got to react straight away. And
yeah.
that's the thing. So during COVID, which caught us right out, we had to keep going. The amount of support we needed to give from more and more young people, because of obviously lockdown. There may be an abusive
Yes.
home situation, and then they're now sort of prisoner in their own home. And we all know some of the statistics of what happened.
We do
Um,
indeed.
but we were there and we helped as much as we could. But we weren't able to do events. We weren't able to get funds from sponsorship. So it really caused a big problem, which we're having to address. So, but we will keep helping where we can, and
Good for you.
ideally we could do with more support, and any viewers, if they're looking to help a charity, then
Yes.
we can give all the new details of what we're going to do, including the arts and that. So or
Perfect.
if they've got an old violin that they don't use anymore,
Mm.
we'll collect it and put it to good use.
I don't blame you as well, and I think we're now what, an hour and 15 in, so that's a quick, very quick hour and 15, isn't it? It's just disappeared.
Yeah,
It
I'm,
really
I'm, I'm
has.
surprised. Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
wrap up now, I think, Lance, just to cut it
Mm.
down, and of course, do you mind staying on for 5 minutes at the end? Literally, I've got something to offer you as far as charity is concerned, raising money. So I'd like to talk to you
Okay.
about it.
Yeah.
It's a good opportunity.
Thank
So,
you.
as always, on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show, we could talk forever, Lance, about your life. And as I said earlier, I have actually had to cut out quite a bit of this script. It was an amazing show. It's been a
Yeah,
huge.
the OBE never got mentioned.
No, exactly. Yeah, and that was in there, and it was just.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, OBE was offered,
Yeah,
wasn't
well,
provided.
what's quite interesting about that, I was with Mike Tyndall and Zara. I'll keep it brief, but
Yes.
the Queen gave it was. I feel honoured because it was the last batch that she gave, which is a
Oh,
birthday and
bless.
a royal jubilee years, and then she passed away, bless her. So
Yes.
I didn't know who was going to give it to me, but I was with Mike Tyndall and Zara Phillips one weekend, and that was about 4 or 5 days before I was actually going to get it. And Zara said to me, "Wouldn't it be funny if Mum gives you your award?" And of course you don't know who it is because security reasons. I rock up, get treated really well, and guess who's there? It's Princess Anne, and she actually said straight away. She said, "Oh, when was it you got your sports personality?" She said, "I remember that." And I said, "It was 2010, Mum." And but I said, "I also remember your one." I think it was the 70s, wasn't it? And it was like, I think, black and white. And
Yes.
she was laughing away. I said, also, I was with your daughter last week, and she was asking about, would it be funny if Mum gets it? She was laughing her head off. Very natural person, but really good, really hardworking royal. And she
Yes.
knew everything about me. No piece of paper. She just said, "Right, what you're doing is great. Keep going. Da da da. If I can help in any way."
Tremendous.
And finished on a good day. So sorry about that, but I just thought that
No, don't
finished on
apologise.
a high note.
That had to
Yeah.
be talked about. It's a great little story too. It's a fantastic. It's been a great show, and it's been a huge pleasure as always. And as always, the pleasure is all mine, Lance, and of course the show's audience when this podcast is released on the World of Lord Russell podcast show later on today. So thank you, Lance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Lance Haggith, OBE. Fantastic. What a great story that was. The
Thank you.
next episode on the World of Lord Russell podcast talk show is the football family, where my special guests will be Alan Hudson. Of course, he was on my show in May last year, but it'll be Alan Hudson and Anthony Hudson, who form part of the true football family, where other members, including Alan Hudson Jr., Alan's son, are also energised by the magic that football provides as a global sport. Alan Hudson, as I said earlier, was on the show in May 2023, and great to welcome Alan back. And of course, is the former English footballer who played for Chelsea, Stoke City, Arsenal, and the Seattle Sounders, as well as the England national football team. Anthony Hudson, his son, is a professional football manager who most recently left his role as head coach of Al Makiyaya SC. I think I got that wrong, but anyway, I've tried. By mutual consent, stepping into the advisory role instead. Anthony has also managed Bahrain and New Zealand, leading the teams to the 2015 AFC Asian Cup and the 2017 FIFA Confederations Cup, respectively. In addition, in 2023, Anthony had briefly been the interim coach of the United States national team before stepping down before the start of the 2023 CONCACAF National League Finals. And of course, I'm looking forward to seeing you all on the inside. So until then, it's au revoir from him and au revoir from me.